If I had to choose a good reading month or the best reading month so far this year, this March would be the one. I read 3 books and they are all almost 5 stars. And even though I'm quite generous in my ratings, I'm not very harsh, I feel like these 3 books deserve the first place. Hi, I'm Juliana and welcome back to another video. Today we are updating my reading journal as usual at the end of each month, and I'm so happy with March. This time I'm doing things a bit different. I'm going to do the usual spreads for the books and the Mangás or Manhwas, and then before the flip through we are going back to the initial setup and filling in the spreads with the recent books. I feel like it's interesting to see, so let me know if you like to see that or maybe you are not interested. Also, I have a question for you. I counted the pages I have left in this journal, and if I continue to add the Mangás in here, this won't last me the full year. So, I decided to start a manga journal, and I'm going to start doing my manga collages in there. Now the question is, do you guys want a separate video for that, or do you guys want me to continue basically doing what I'm doing now, but basically 2 journals in 1 video? Let me know in the comments, please. Okay, now with all the questions asked, let me tell you what I'm doing here. I kept the cover page quite minimalist in contrast to what I usually do, but I decided to use this big sticker that came from a bundle that I bought from Runa Maruti a while ago, and I actually did a theme for my mom's bullet journal with that bundle. But this sticker didn't fit on the pages of that journal, so I kept it and I decided to use it in here. Since I don't have the matching stickers anymore, I had to be a little creative and try to match the aesthetic instead. So I only put the doilies on the background to give more attention to the sticker that is the main focus of the page, and right in the middle I stamped the title. Now for the left page I decorated the borders, and in here I'm putting the covers for the books and manga/manhwas that I read in March. So for the books I read Kiss the Villain by Rina Kent, which I gave 5 stars, Tourist Season by Brian Weaver, which I gave 5 stars as well, and The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillick with 4.5 stars. For the manga/manhwas, I read The Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, the comic, the volume 4, Chaotic Nights, The Nameless Flower, Garden of Recordings, Silver Trap, The Ron Project, Violet Romance, The Mugi's Consort, The Runaway Secretary, What You Wish For Won't Come True, and finally Home Run Hearts. Some of these I'm not doing any collage because they are either too small in terms of chapters, so it's a shorter story, or I didn't like it. So I'm only doing collages for the ones I like and I think the story is good enough for. We are now moving on to the first book review, which is for my favorite book so far this year, Kiss the Villain. I didn't have any expectations whatsoever because I really loved God of Fury, which is another MM romance by Rina Kent, but this one blew me away. I still think about it, so let me tell you about it as well. So this story follows Gareth Carson, which we know from the Legacy of God series, and he's part of this club and also mafia, heir to the Carson Empire, and he's a golden boy, a genius law student in this college in the UK. But that's what it looks like from the outside, because deep inside it has the urge to set the world on fire. And that's when he meets Caden Lockwood. During a night where he expected to go according to the plan, but Gareth ended up being caught by a villain worse than him. And worse than that, he's the new criminal law teacher on his university. A criminal teaching criminal law. And they hate each other, but neither can expose the other without exposing themselves. So they begin this dangerous cat and mouse game with no winners in sight. Now, if you want a fluffy romance, this is not it by any means. They are quite toxic in the beginning, but honestly, it's fiction and dark romance, so it's okay. I loved Gareth. I didn't expect him to have this sassy and sarcastic personality because from the Legacy of God series I thought he was very shy and kept to himself, which he does, but inside he's something else. This story was really good, I really liked it, the whole plot with the mafia and revenge. I loved their relationship, especially because Gareth is always in denial, and that was so funny throughout the book. I really liked Caden as well, he was very interesting, and his story was also quite deep, which I didn't expect. Overall, if you like dark romance, you know that you can't look for a fluffy romance, so if you like these very entertaining relationships, you will like Kiss the Villain, and I think I liked it more than God of Fury. Also, something that I noticed is the difference in maturity, because Caden is older than Gareth, and in some situations you can see that Gareth is more emotional than rational, and that's okay because that's the reality most of the times with couples with an age gap. Not always, but most of them, and I really liked the reality of that in the book. Next we have Tourist Season. And I didn't know that this was not a standalone like the Ruinous Love trilogy, and I'm a little mad about it, but that's my fault for not doing my research. So, Tourist Season follows the story of Harper Starling, a character that we actually know from Butcher and Blackbird. She is a survivor of a serial killer, and now she lives on this seaside town called Cape Carnage, and she keeps the town safe from tourists, at least the bad ones. She's a skilled gardener with killer instincts, and Harper protects her sanctuary, and also her aging mentor with a fading memory at any cost. And troublesome tourists don't check out of Cape Carnage. They compost beneath Harper's award-winning flower beds. But with the new tourist season also comes Nolan Rhodes, searching for revenge, and that has a name: Harper's Darling. On every anniversary of the hit-and-run accident that killed his brother, Nolan slays another target that was involved in that, and the last target is Harper. The problem is that she isn't the monster he expected her to be, and she won't go down without a fight. But when an amateur true crime investigator comes to Cape Carnage on the trail of a long-lost serial killer, Harper and Nolan have to make a temporary truce, because if Nolan helps Harper protect her town, she'll keep quiet about his hunting habits, at least for now. I really liked both characters, even though sometimes their decisions were a little bad. I mean, I wouldn't do that if it was me, but oh well. And I actually guessed the plot twist at the very end of the book, because that's the cliffhanger for the next one. And I think I guessed it because I listened a lot of true crime stories and podcasts and things like that, so I kinda saw the signs, but it was a very good plot twist. I liked the story behind each character and how they are right now, even with very dark stories. I loved the sarcasm and dark humor of Harper. It actually made me remember Sloane from Butcher and Blackbird. So if you like dark romance with very gory details, serial killers, but still a lighter tone with the story, full of sarcasm and dark humor, this book is for you. But keep in mind that this is not a standalone and you have to wait for the next one. Moving on, we have The Night and the Moth, a book that I knew nothing about. I just knew about it because it is very popular on BookTok, so I decided to try it out and see how it went with this romantasy book. Because again, I don't read fantasy, it's not my cup of tea, but I've been enjoying the ones I picked so far this year, like Terror at the Gates for example. This story follows Sybil Delling. She's a diviner, and like many others before her, she traded a decade of service for a home in the Great Cathedral. As a diviner, she can predict terrible things before they occur, by receiving visions from 6 unearthly figures known as omens. The only thing she needs to do is drown. Drown in the magic water in the cathedral. And that's why kings, lords, and common folk alike travel across the kingdom of Traum to learn their futures by her dreams. Until she meets a person like no other so far, a knight that doesn't believe in divination and has no respect for visions, Roderick. So naturally they hate each other at first sight, but when her fellow diviner sisters begin to disappear one by one each night, Sibyl has no choice but to seek his help in finding them. And only the gods have the answers she is seeking, and as much as she rather avoid Roderick's dark eyes and sharp tongue, only a heretic can defeat a god. Guys, this premise was so intriguing, and I have to say, I loved the magic system. It was easy and simple to understand. I loved world building, especially because that's my problem with fantasy books. They have such an intricate world building full of different cities and names that I can hardly remember by the time they appear. So by having just enough world building and not having such heavy lore about it was so good for me. I loved Sibyl, she's smart and very courageous, but my favorite is without any doubt the Gargoyle, which has a name, but I can say it because it would be a spoiler. But it was so fun doing this journey with it. The story was so good, the plot twists were amazing, ones that I didn't see coming, and one that I did because the character was acting a little sus for a while. But other than that, it was an amazing book, and I can't believe it ended on that cliffhanger. If you know, you know. Okay, now let's begin the manga/manhwa part of the video, and let's start with the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. This is the volume 4, so I can't really say much about it without spoilers, but I'll tell you the summary again for those who didn't saw my previous reading journal videos. So, Wei Wuxian, the one in black, was once one of the most outstanding men of his generation, a talented and clever young cultivator who harnessed martial arts, knowledge and spirituality into powerful abilities. But when the horrors of war led him to seek a new power through demonic cultivation, the world's respect for his skills turned to fear, and his eventual death was celebrated throughout the land. Years later, he awakens in the body of an aggrieved young man who sacrifices his soul so that Wei Wuxian can exact revenge on his behalf. Though granted a second life, Wei Wuxian is not free from his first, nor the mysteries that appear before him now. Yet this time he'll face it all with the righteous and esteemed Lan Wangji at his side, another powerful cultivator whose unwavering dedication and shared memories of their past will help shine a light on the dark truths that surround them. They are my babies, my favorite donghua as well, and honestly, it's so good. The story, the characters, everything. And it has a happy ending, so that's all I needed. Of course, I gave it 5 stars without thinking because I'm only reading this for pure joy, not to be critic about it. So let's continue on to the next manhwa, that is Chaotic Knights. Hyuna, a peasant girl, is asked by a blind nobleman named Ji-hak to become his reading assistant. Though reluctant, she accepts the shady Ji-hak's offer in hopes of earning enough money to free her sister from the courtesan life. And thus begins a dangerous romance of hidden intentions and passion. So I really liked this manhwa. The thing I will say to you is don't trust the first chapter. It will look very bad and toxic, but it's not. Trust me, please. It was actually much more healthy, in quotation marks, than I expected, because almost every manhwa from this time frame is quite toxic. But I loved the main characters and I wanted to see more of the second couple. The story is very intriguing with shady politics and questionable morals, but the romance is very good and smutty, just so you know. Next we have The Nameless Flower. Young Ruan, the little lord of House Mercillion, has never had an easy childhood. With his older brother constantly feigning illness, the burden of the harsh heir's training falls squarely on his small shoulders. So one day, unable to take it any longer, Ruan dashes out of the mansion and loses himself in the forest. There he stumbles upon a boy his own age. They don't exchange names, and yet none of that seems to matter. With him, even nibbling on grass becomes an adventure. Ruan finds himself laughing, playing, and perhaps for the very first time, feeling free. Day by day, his thoughts drift further from the rigid lessons of succession and closer to the warmth of that kind-hearted boy. But gossip spreads quickly, and soon even the stern Count Mercillion hears whispers of his son's wandering heart. Well, this story had everything to be a fluffy romance, but it was not, unfortunately. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. I cried so much because of the main characters. Ruan made very bad decisions, and honestly, by the end, I kinda wished they wouldn't be together. But I don't know, it pulled on my heartstrings and it was very touching with so much tragedy, but it was quite unique in terms of storyline. For the next page we have Garden of Recordings, but I forgot to print the pictures for the collage for some reason, so I'm only going to put the cover in here for now, and on the next reading journal update I'll do it. So moving on to the next, we have Violet Romance. Buried in debt, Baektan scrapes by running a beat-up udon shop in a red light district, until Mushin enters her life. Wealthy, ruthless, and irresistibly dangerous, he offers her an arrangement stripped of names, feelings, and mercy. What begins as a cold, transactional desire slowly tightens into obsession and control. Drawn to the pleasure he gives and the darkness he carries, Baektan teeters between escape and ruin. In their world, love is sharp and salvation is cruel. So Baektan must decide whether Mushin is her way out of hell or the one pulling her further in. This one was toxic, yes. Was it entertaining? Also yes. Did I love the art style? Absolutely. This is not a healthy romance by any means, but I kinda liked the characters and the story was interesting. I liked Baektan more. She's smart and kind-hearted, but also firm when it comes to decisions. So overall it was a good story. Toxic, yes, and not amazing, but entertaining. And I guess whenever mafia is involved you can't really expect a healthy relationship, but in the end it was all good. I usually decorate according to the cover, but this time, since she runs a food shop, I think the tiles would look very good and on theme. Moving on, we have The Runaway Secretary. So, how do you get over a guy you've been in love with since forever? Well, you first try to resign from your position as his secretary, or plan B, ask him to date you. Fair and square. That's exactly what Yoon Si-hee decides to do, and the proposal is only for 3 months. The only problem? Well, the guy is the cold, confident Kang Ta-wook, Si-hee's boss, and he's unwilling to lose his top secretary, so he agrees to see his unorthodox offer, with a plan to show her just how unlovable he is. But can Ta-wook make Si-hee realize he isn't such a good catch, or will he find himself falling for a girl who just wants to give him up for good? I really liked the beginning of the story. It was different from the usual office romances, with a confession from the very start, from the female part, but then it felt like any other office romance with the whole rich family drama. I didn't like the ending either. I don't know, it felt unfinished and it could be better with a more exciting plot instead of the same drama. For the last page of this setup, we have Home Run Hearts. So, childhood friends Han Do-hoon, the red hair one, and Woo Ik-soo have been inseparable since elementary school, bonded by their shared love for the mid-tier baseball team, the Dolphins. But when Ik-soo decides to go to the team's home opener with someone other than Do-hoon, the foundations of their friendship begin to crack. With this curveball, their relationship takes an unexpected turn, and as the Dolphins edge closer to a championship, Do-hoon and Ik-soo can seem to get one another off their minds. This was a love triangle, and I don't usually like those, but this one it was pretty clear from the beginning that the other love interest wasn't really the main one, and that's a thing that actually bothered me because, spoiler, when Do-hoon confesses to Ik-soo, Ik-soo is dating the other person, and so they decide that Ik-soo has to choose one or the other. And even though he chooses Do-hoon, the other guy never appeared again. And I'm like, did it just disappear? They never officially broke up? But well, that was my only complaint about it. Besides that, it was actually a cute story, from childhood friends to lovers, and it was fun seeing especially Do-hoon realize little by little that maybe his feelings towards Ik-soo are not of a friendship, but rather something else. Okay, and now we are going back as promised to the initial setup, and I'm going to update all my spreads with the books I read in March. I'm loving these book cover spreads so much, it looks amazing so far, and I'm hoping it will be full by the end of the year. I'm doing good in my reading goal so far. I'm currently at 9 books out of 40, so I'm hoping to read at least one more book per month, even if it's a novel. I'm not very harsh with myself to complete the goal because I only read at night because I work during the day, but I would still like to accomplish it, and I did it in 2025, so I'm hoping to do it as well in 2026. These 3 books I read in paperback, so I can color in the stamps with my page outliner. Then for the challenges, I did one more letter in the A to Z challenge with Kiss the Villain, which I also used for the Read the Rainbow challenge. Maybe in the future I'll put Game On by Navessa Allen on top of it, because it's a little more green than Kiss the Villain, but for now it can stay there. For the bingo, I colored 4 prompts: Enemies to Lovers and Set in Summer for Tourist Season, Book Talk Favorite for The Night and the Moth, and Made Me Cry for Kiss the Villain. Then for the Year of Goober challenge, I chose The Night and the Moth for the Lemon Tart, which means given a second chance. Not because I tried to read it before, but because I tried romantasy again, so I gave it another shot. Maybe the genre didn't count, but I will, so for me that's okay. And it's just a fun challenge that I like to do, so I'm not very strict about it. And I think all the challenges should be that way. Reading is my hobby, not my job, so I try to keep things really chill. I think it's good to challenge myself, but I'm still not very harsh about it. For the series tracker, I added 3 more, which were the Seasons of Carnage trilogy with Tourist Season, the Villain trilogy for Kiss the Villain, and the Stonewater Kingdom duology for The Night and the Moth, and I read the first book of each one. Then I just had to fill in all the mini reviews for the books, which contains more data about the books, like the name, the author, the series, or if it's a standalone, the format, the genre, the number of pages, when it was published, the dates I started and finished, the star and spice rating, and of course a mini review. Just a summary for when I may want to reread a book, I know how I felt about it before. And I did this type of spreads in 2025 and I love how they look in the end. Just like a catalog just with books. It's really cool. If you want to see how I made all these initial spreads and how I explain them, I'll leave the link of the video down in the description. And it's time for the final flip through. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give a like, subscribe and comment down below a duck emoji to let me know you watched it till the end. Also, let me know your opinion on my initial questions about my manga journal, and also if you'd like to see the initial spreads update on my reading journal. March was without any doubts an amazing reading month for me. I was very excited to read Kiss the Villain, but at the same time no expectations, and I was having the time of my life for sure. Let me know in the comments what books stole your heart in March, or if maybe you didn't have one. Besides my opinion on the books, I think the pages turned out really beautiful. My favorite is maybe Tourist Season. I just like all the colors together. I'm really excited for the books I'll read in April. Spoiler, I didn't love the first one, but let's see how it goes. I hope you have a lovely day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!